The New York State Department of Transportation presents the DOT POD.
And welcome into the DOT POD. I'm Josh Heller.
And I'm Anya Cardos.
And we are delighted to have you joining us.
Well, the women of DOT represent an extraordinary collective of dedicated professionals who thrive in a field that has long been viewed as predominantly male. And we've had the privilege of sharing some of their inspiring stories numerous times right here on the DOT POD.
And in honor of Women's History Month, we're highlighting a newly formed women's group that's dedicated to uplifting and empowering the women who are making significant contributions to DOT and the transportation sector.
And today we're proud to be talking with the founders of this women's group to explore its origins and how it's nurturing a vibrant community of women centered around mentorship, advocacy, and collaboration right here within DOT. We are delighted to welcome Nancy Kamel and Deborah Rivera to our discussion today. Welcome, Nancy and Deborah. How you doing?
Good, doing good. Thank you for this nice introduction.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us, absolutely. So we'll kick things off as we kind of do most times, just by getting to know a little bit more about you guys and what you do with the department. Nancy, you've been on the podcast previously, though, over the phone, so it's great to have you sitting down with us in person. So we'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and about what you do here.
Okay, so I am... Just about my background, I'm an electrical engineer, so you don't really see many electrical engineers in DOT. And I started in 2001. And back then, for me to be able to join DOT, I could not start as an engineer. So I had to start at the technician level, actually. So I started as a senior engineering technician, and it was all because of my husband. My husband worked at DOT, and he's the one that told me about taking civil service exams to be able to join DOT, so which is what I did, took the senior engineering technician and joined DOT in construction group as a construction field inspector. And then I started to take more exams, went up to the PET, to the AE, and that's when I realized that I have to take my PA license to be able to go anywhere from there, because I realized that the grade 20 was the end of the line for me.
Professional engineer.
The professional engineering license, correct. So I took my PE license, and from there I just went from being an assistant to the regional director to a traffic control unit supervisor in traffic group. And then from there I was a manager at Inform, TMC, then a resident engineer with maintenance group, and finally the maintenance engineer for Region 10.
Oh, that's great, Nancy. Thank you. And so, Deborah, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Well, I recently started at DOT in June of 2023. I started off in the Transportation Maintenance Office as an Office Assistant 1. And then later about a year in, I received a promotion as a Transportation Office Assistant 2. And I've been there almost 2 years now, going into June. And I really love working for DOT, and it's a great group of people, and getting to know different backgrounds and meeting new people is very great.
You know, at DOT, we have a real diverse group of talented, intelligent, and very committed women contributing across various roles here within the department, from highway maintenance to the commissioner's office. Our own commissioner is female, and numerous women are in key leadership positions here as well. Can you kind of share what the women's group is all about and the impetus behind it? How did this start?
Okay, so how it started, let me just start by saying I have been thinking about it for years now. You know, it took years for it to actually happen, because it was just an idea in my head. We work together, right? But at DOT, I feel like we're more like a family. In DOT, we're very close knit, and we spend a lot of hours together. We don't imagine, like you don't think about it that way, but a lot of times we spend more hours at work than at home. We interact with each other on a personal level a lot. Like you see people. I like to do that, and I know a lot of women like to do the same as well. It's not just me, it's a lot of women around that when we see each other in the hallway or in between meetings or in the ladies' room or whatever, we're always talking, and we always ask about each other. Like I am a true believer in the "how are you doing" question, that it's very important to interact that way with others. Mm-hmm. It's not just, we're not just here to get a a task completed and we're going home.
How are you really doing?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And meaning it honestly. You're not just having the small talk of how are you doing.
Not the standard. How you doing? Fine.
No. The more of, if you notice that someone is looking different, maybe feeling different, something is wrong, you're really asking it with care, and you're really trying to support and help that person. And as I said, the power of how are you doing is really strong. So I found that those little conversations that we have in the bathroom, in the hallway, in the elevator, walking in or out of the building, sometimes a lot of good conversations come up, and you learn from each other. You're learning from each other's experiences and what happened and how did that person handle this specific problem when their kids were younger, or trying to take a civil service exam and not finding time to study, or not finding material to study, or whatever it is, whether it's something that's 100% work related, or maybe it's something that's 100% personal, on a personal level, related to something personal. We support each other and we talk to each other, and these conversations are very important in keeping us all together, and that feeling of the one family, the one DOT family. And so I've been thinking that rather than having these conversations, whether it's one person with just another person, or in a group of 2 or 3 or whatever, what about if we meet regularly and sit and talk? We're not meeting a work meeting per se. We're getting together, we're sitting in a very relaxed atmosphere, and we're talking, and no topic is off limits. Whatever we want to talk about, we talk about, to help each other, to support each other, to lift each other up.
I want to ask, you said, you've been thinking about this for a long time. Talk about what goes into creating something like this. You can't just, to go from an idea to an actual, tangible thing. What was the process like for you to have this and see it from its infancy?
The idea in my head, I was like, how can I get this going? How can I get it started? And to be honest with you, it was part of planning forward. We were brainstorming about planning forward and the initiatives of planning forward. And the first goal in planning forward is about the workforce, and making sure our workforce is diverse and professional. And so about the people. It's the first goal of planning forward is about the people at DOT.
Yeah, our strategic plan basically for the department and where we're going and how we want to implement any new plans like safety or workforce development, things like that, improvements, things like that.
Absolutely. So I put it in as a suggestion for some planning forwards initiatives that we're doing in Region 10, Long Island, and it was included in our initiatives, and it was approved. And that's how I was able to, I got an approval here for this to start. And that's how we started. And it took some time to get it off and going. I have to say, creating the flyer for it, I am not artistic at all, And again, it was, I kept talking to people around me. I need to create a flyer. Can someone help me out? And it was in the ladies' room that I meet this wonderful lady, Shannon Burgess, from our Right of Way group. And she goes, I'll create a flyer for you. No worries. Perfect. I was like, great. Thank you. I need that. So we had to get a place to meet. And we needed also approval to put up the flyers in the state office building, which we did, an approval. And that's when Deborah helped out a lot. She helped with getting the room and getting the flyer approved.
And so, Deborah, I'm going to bring you into the conversation here. You got involved early on. This was developed in November, correct?
Our first meeting was actually October 30th.
Okay. So fall, and you get involved. This is going on in Region 10, which is Long Island, out of the HOPOG office, correct?
Correct.
What do these meetings look like? Can you describe that?
Our first meeting that we did, like Nancy said, it was very informal. So we met in the cafeteria, just kind of all grouped together at a long table, and just spoke about what the women's group was about, what could be brought to the table, and nothing was really off limits, and we could the possibilities were possibly endless. We could do whatever suggestion was given to us. But then I spoke with Nancy, and we found that a lot of people come to eat their lunch at the cafeteria, and by us speaking and getting a little bit loud, having fun, might disturb someone who wants to have a quiet lunch. So that's when we came out with the idea that we should reserve a room. And from there, we received interest from Eric Galgan, who he's a yoga instructor, and he instructs many classes. And he said, I could instruct a class for you guys.
Oh, that's great.
So that became a big interest for the women's group. And that's when we started incorporating the yoga into.
And is this during the lunch break during the day? Is that how it's kind of like, people are going to be there. It's not disturbing anyone's workflow or anything like that?
Correct.
Was that the thinking behind it?
That was the thinking behind it, and allows people to come in and de-stress, take away from their workday, and be able to just have a relaxing moment. And also a lot that we do is we speak a lot about posture. So a lot of the times while you're sitting at your desk, you're hunching over, you're
sinking
unconsciously
right now.
during the day.
You're just hunching over unconsciously, and you don't notice the amount of stress and pressure that puts on your body, and that carries throughout your day, and you take that home. So he really focused on that, and he focuses on getting us to correct our posture. And then we do about 20 to 25 minutes of the yoga, and then at the end, we kind of speak on certain topics. If there's an exam coming up, if someone needs advice with something. So it becomes very, very nice for all of us.
I want to speak on that. You mentioned if there's an exam coming up or, things like that. How has this group kind of become almost a cornerstone of mentorship for women in your office?
Well, definitely, before the women's group started, I remember when I was coming up with a civil service exam, I kind of didn't know what resources were out there, especially being very new to civil service, being in a civil service job. I didn't know that the union especially offered workbooks, and that there were books out there that we could purchase and study off of. But then speaking to other people in the building, they were able to offer resources. And there are many people who have taken those tests beforehand and have passed those exams successfully. And this is what the women's group does. So we could bring out, for example, Nancy is taking a management exam coming up very soon. So if there's someone who's fairly new taking that exam for the first time, then Nancy could have resources that they didn't even know were out there.
Right. It's kind of like when you have a group of people together, men, women, it doesn't matter. It's about making those connections.
Correct.
If you are in the room together, it's amazing what you learn.
Correct.
It can be small, but it can, in the end, make a huge impact. I know, Nancy, you talked about a young woman who was a little nervous about taking a civil service exam, and you provided her some mentorship, but you also provided her some direction and just kind of cheered her on. Talk about that.
Okay. So there was this young female employee who had signed up to take a civil service exam, and again, how are you doing? What's going on? How are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
And she told me about how stressed she was because she had signed up for that civil service exam that was coming up in 1 week. Yet, I had so much going on in my life and I didn't have a chance to study, and I'm not going to go to the exam. I didn't study. I don't think I can take the exam. And I said, no, hold on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, these exams come only every 4 years. You know that? No, she didn't know that they only come every 4 years. So I said, and it can be longer. It's not necessarily going to be in 4 years. So, and all you need is to have your name on the list of just passing. Passing the exam is only 70, and you still have 1 week. 1 week is a lot of time to study. Study for 1 week. Studying for 1 week is much better than not studying at all.
Right.
Study for 1 week, go take the exam. Even if you do not pass the exam, the experience of taking the exam will help you out next time you take the exam. So no, there is don't tell me I'm skipping that exam because I didn't study. That's not happening. You're going to study for 1 week. You're going to work hard for 1 week. You're going to take the exam. And remember, all you need is 70 to pass that exam. That's all that you need. She took the exam and she did pass the exam and got promoted.
That's fantastic.
From taking that exam. And it's a good feeling to feel that you can help people just by asking, how are you doing?
You never would have known that she was going through that if you never ask. And I think sometimes we get kind of caught up in our own way, right? We have lots of stuff going on. We all have lots of stuff going on.
Of stuff going on, and there is a lot of times when you're running in the hallway, and I do that a lot. I do that a lot when I'm running to because I'm going from one meeting to another meeting in the state office building, and I'm rushing back and forth. And when you're doing that, you do not notice people around you, and that's not good. That's why I try whenever I can to slow down and talk to people around me. It's very important.
Well, and that's also why it's important to have a scheduled time, a scheduled place where you can slow down for 30 minutes and do just that, as opposed to maybe you run into somebody, maybe you don't. Maybe you run into someone, but your mind's elsewhere, which is no fault to anyone. It's just life. But having something, and I think at the moment it's once a month, but I think there's interest to increase that type of presence you have.
That's correct. Yep. We are now, because of the ladies are asking for more. And so we are looking, and Deborah is taking the lead of looking to find a spot, a room for us to have it actually every other week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're looking to do it 2 times a month. Every time we finish, it's like, when's the next one? Can we do it 2 times? Can we do it once a week?
Now, I'm curious. I mean, obviously you had the flyers, but word of mouth is how this gets done. That's how these things spread. And I'm curious what the reaction has been. Have you noticed that the group is growing, month to month, session to session, that people are saying like, hey, this is good, and I want to let my friend know, and I want to, or I bump into someone like, hey, I don't have time right now, but when we do have time, have you seen kind of a growth in that regard?
Definitely. When we first started off, we did start towards the holiday season. So it was like, sometimes it was sporadic. So sometimes you would get a larger group, you would get a lower group. So, but we have seen an established group. So we have the same group of members come in every time, and they say, I'm going to bring a friend next time. And they do bring a friend. So we always have new faces, about 2 to 3 new faces come in, and they enjoy it.
When I'm listening to you speak, both of you, Nancy and Deborah, I'm hearing a lot of growing of solidarity between you and other women whom you work with. Have you heard from other DOT regions across the state, other offices, where they're asking you, how have you done this? Because we've wanted to do this, or I just heard about it, and I feel like that could be something that would really build a lot of solidarity, as I mentioned, and formulate some of this mentorship that you're talking about. Who have you heard from? Have you heard from anyone?
Yes. So the posting on the NYSDOT was great. It was our PIO, Stephen. It was his idea to put a posting on the NYSDOT. And
shout out Stephen Canzaneri.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stephen.
We all love Stephen. And I started to get contacted by several ladies across the state asking, how did you start it? Can you give us some more information? Do you have any flyers that you can share? Any information that you can share? And that one lady from Region 3, she was telling me, we've been trying to kick it off, but we had some pushback, and I did provide information to those that reach out to me. And I know that actually I heard back from the lady in Region 3 telling me that they did have their first meeting already. So it did kick off in another region. So I'm very happy about that. And I'm really hoping that it will grow even more and become a part of every DOT region across the state.
And for those listening, we'll have Nancy's email, if that's all right with you, in our description. So if you do have questions about this, you can reach out to Nancy if you're all right with that.
I'm totally all right with that. Absolutely.
So check in the description of this week's podcast, and you'll find Nancy's email. So she's not too scary. You can reach out to her. Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things, and I've noticed it just sitting here across from you two, is Deborah, you're fairly new to DOT. Nancy, you're a veteran of the DOT game as it is, but just, having that type of diversity in the group for, people who have experienced a lot more, people who are newer and have fresher ideas. How has that been, just being able to kind of get that cross section of, different generations, different experiences? I mean, it really has to lead to quite a wealth of experience, overall.
It's wonderful. It's just wonderful. It's very nice to see the future of DOT, sitting with the ones like me that are counting the years towards retirement. You know what I mean?
But you can look back and you remember what it was like when we were talking about your sons and they were young and you were starting out. It's not always easy, and we forget sometimes what it was like.
It's not easy. It's and Deborah and I, we just took a 2.5 hour trip to make it here today. Together, and we were talking, and we, on the way in here, we were talking about, we were talking about, it's not easy to take those exams that you need to take to move up. And for me, it wasn't just the civil service exams. It was the FE exam and the PE exam. I had a full-time job at DOT, and I had a full-time job at home. I was a mother of 2 young kids. It was not an easy thing to do. It's anyone that expects that, oh, you're a group director now, that things were rosy and dandy and easy. No, they are not. They are never easy. It's never easy to move up. You have to work hard at your job to begin with. You need to be hardworking, but you also need to work hard outside. So having the younger generation in the room with us, the ones that went through that already, we went through having the full-time job at home and the full-time job at work, and how the things that we had to juggle and what we needed to do to be able to balance everything. It's very nice to be able to exchange the experiences with the younger generation. It's inspiring to hear from them too, because we tell them about our experiences, but they live in a completely different world now too.
Yes.
And
it's
you hear from them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to bounce off of what Nancy was saying and ask you that question, and you kind of answered it right now. But it is kind of a wealth of knowledge. I feel like it's they're ahead. They're looking back, and you're looking forward. Talk about some of the women who are in the group that are relatively new to DOT. What does this mean to them?
It's very eye-opening because it allows them to be able to meet. We all work in different departments within the building. So it's very eye-opening to get their experiences, how they're working in their offices, how their experience has been, and what challenges or what rewards they've had throughout. So it's very good to be able to learn from people who have been there for 30 years and learn from people who have been there for maybe 6 months, because everyone's experience in the DOT is different, and we all have different jobs that we do within the DOT. So it's very rewarding to be able to hear those stories and learn from them as well.
I would imagine this helps a lot if you come across a challenge that you've never experienced before, something like that.
Yeah, definitely.
So you mentioned that that you've had a yoga instructor there, and I'm curious what other ideas that you have, what other plans you have, moving forward for this group. What kind of visions do you see in the short and long term for this?
So the idea is we want to be in a kind of a relaxing atmosphere. That's why after the first meeting, like Deborah mentioned, we went into a room with a door where we can be a little loud and more relaxed and not worry about being loud and annoying people around us, right? So we started with the yoga, but we also did light or stress relieving breathing techniques, and we are looking into doing in the future, including some simple arts and crafts, some simple dance moves, whatever it is to keep the people interested, to keep coming back. And with the relaxing music in the background, people are relaxed, people are more open to talk more and engage in the conversation and have this relaxing atmosphere where we can all talk and share experiences.
To hit the reset button on your day, basically.
Absolutely. It does. Honestly, I have to say, for me, myself, personally, I block my calendar for 30 minutes for those 12 to 12:30, so I don't get meetings during our scheduled women group meetings. And just the idea that I am getting 30 minutes where I can disconnect, forget about work, because we tend, unfortunately, with the cell phones in our hands nowadays, we rarely disconnect. Whether it's during the day or at night or on the weekends or even on vacations.
So true.
So you rarely disconnect. It's nice to get this 30 minutes where you're disconnecting, relaxing, and thinking about other things that are very important too.
Well, we're going to wrap up our discussion, but not before we ask you a few questions that we really enjoy asking our guests. The first one would be, what is your favorite New York State or DOT road trip? Deborah?
I remember as a kid, we used to go out to Bear Mountain. That was one of my favorite road trips, and I plan on doing that very soon. I haven't done that in a couple of years. So I'm looking forward to that.
Nice. Nancy?
Okay. I'll tell you, I cannot remember the places, but another hat that I wore for a long time now is I'm Region 10's emergency manager. And I was telling Deborah that on the way here. We used to have, pre-COVID, we used to do 3 in-person meetings every year. One in the spring, one in the fall, and one in the winter time. And the wintertime one was always in the same place because it was related to some conference. But the spring and fall was always in a different region. So I got to go to so many regions around the state. So these trips to those different regions around the state that allowed me to go around the state and see so many places and areas that I've never visited before, and enjoyed some special trips with the emergency managers and learned a lot about the different regions around the state. Oh, it was amazing. It was quite an amazing experience, I have to say.
Second question. What's your favorite music to jam out to, a song, genre, while you're on one of your favorite road trips?
Definitely some upbeat music. So I tend to be playing Bee Gees a lot.
Oh, I love
Yes,
the Bee Gees.
I love it. It's just relaxing, upbeat,
Nice
keeps
on
you
Broadway.
distracted. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Nancy?
So generally, whether at work or in the car, I like to turn on some very light, relaxing music, like piano. Relaxing music relaxes me, and especially at work with all the stress, relaxing music is good. But if I am at home or on the weekend and I want to, listen to some music, I love old Egyptian music. So that's what I like. I don't like the new songs. I go like 30, 40 years old.
The standards.
I want to thank both of you for taking the time to talk with us, and also for coming up here and meeting us in the regional office here in the Hudson Valley in Poughkeepsie, and making the trip to tell us more about it, but also to tell the entire state about what you guys are doing and the impact that it's making. And again, as I mentioned, if anyone listening is interested and wants to look into starting their own type of women's group, I will have Nancy's email in the description, so please do not hesitate to reach out to her. But again, from both of us, thank you so much for taking some time and coming up here and chatting with us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Pleasure.
Well, that'll just about do it for us here from the DOTPOD, another Women's History Month episode. Anya, on a fun one here today.
Oh, yeah. It's great to hear what people are doing within this great department to lift people up and support them. And that is exactly what this women's group is doing. So congratulations to Nancy and Deborah.
And a special thanks to Heather Pillsworth for setting us up here in the regional office here in Poughkeepsie. And a thanks to each and every one of you for tuning in as you do, wherever you might be tuning in from, to the DOTPOD. We are certainly glad to have you tuning on in. You can reach out to us, podcast at dot.ny.gov. That's podcast at dot.ny.gov. So until next time, she's Anya, I'm Josh. We'll be right here on the DOTPOD.